Welcome to the Grace and Grit podcast, made for women who want their healthiest years to be ahead of them, not behind them. Join your host, Courtney Townley, right now as she breaks down the fairy tale health story you have been chasing all of your life into sensible action steps and lasting change. Welcome to the Grace and Grit podcast. This is your host, Courtney Townley. As always, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be here and listen into this show. I'm really excited to be continuing our theme this month, which is Principles of Deep Health. If you missed last week's episode, it was the first episode in this new theme. And I kind of did a deep dive into why I actually chose this theme. And I'll just say here and now to remind you or catch you up in case you missed that episode, that deep health is so much more than what the diet industry has sold women, which, largely what the diet industry has sold women is restriction as a means to smallness. Really, I'm speaking directly to weight loss. And in my world, having worked with women for the past 20 years, deep health is really cultivated from the inside out. It's something that only you can fully measure. And again, I'm not saying that Western medicine, blood profiles and things of that nature aren't helpful for you to measure it. But deep health is not going to be defined completely by those things. Deep health is a commitment to developing yourself as a whole person, somebody who has a mind, a body, and a soul, not just a body. Deep health is not the result of following a bunch of rules and regulations that worked for someone else's life. Deep health is a lifetime journey of self-discovery and increasing your capacity to direct yourself through your life in a meaningful way. Deep health requires you to practice expansion, integrity, courage, self-leadership, and unconditional love. Achieving a state of deep health is my wish for you and every woman I work with. And I really hope that the episodes that we do in this month's theme will help you to start developing it. So last week, we talked about health being a practice of expansion. Because really, the mindset from which you try to implement change is the same mindset from which you will try to maintain your achievements. I'm going to repeat that one more time because it's really worth hearing and searing into your brain. The mindset from which you try to implement change is the same mindset from which you will try to maintain your achievements. Which means if you're someone who is pursuing a goal from a mindset of restriction, fear, and self-loathing, that is precisely the mindset that you will try to use to maintain your achievements from, which will feel downright miserable and in most cases impossible to maintain. And you don't have to look very far for evidence of that. Just look at the diet industry. When you restrict things like love, happiness, and possibility from your life until you achieve something, which is largely how I see most women moving through the diet culture, when you restrict those things from your life, you delude yourself into thinking that you will grant yourself those things once you do arrive. But that is not how it works, my friends. You don't expand into abundant living from a practice of restriction and fear. But when you pursue your goals from a mindset of expansion, not only is the journey to your goals way more enjoyable, but you'll have no problem maintaining the habits that you've practiced all along the way, because you've been motivated by self-respect, love, and all that you're here to cause, contribute, and inspire. And those are not things that you easily give up on. Pursuing your goals from a place of expansion rather than restriction is the healthiest way to achieve any goal, my friends, including deep health. And it's the most surefire way to sustain it. If you want more on why I believe deep health is a practice of expansion, like I said, we did the entire episode on that last week, so go back and revisit that. But the reason I am choosing this word practice in all of the episodes that I'm introducing this month, deep health is a practice of, and I'm going to fill in the blank with 5 different things. The reason I'm using the word practice is because it implies imperfection. You don't practice things you're already awesome at necessarily. We commit to a practice because we want to build skill, because we see that there are gaps that need to be filled, because we know we're not perfect in these ways. And even when we do start developing the skill, it is in our best interest to keep practicing it, even when we have increased our capacity for it. So I'm a big believer of this idea of practice, treating your health as a practice rather than as a finish line to cross, which is how I see really the diet industry presenting it, right? It's a goal weight, it's a clothing size, it's a X result by a certain date. That's not deep health. That might be a little milestone along the way, but it's not the journey completely, not by a long shot. Practice also implies consistency. So it's something that you will do continuously. You'll make it a habit. And it really kind of pushes off this idea of timelines, which again speaks to what I just said, right? A lot of times we're buying into programs that are 12 weeks, 21 days, 30 days to create whatever result. But if you're really committed to a practice, timelines kind of go out the window. It's something you're committing to as a way of life. And that's really how I see deep health. It is a commitment to a way of life. So this week, I want to talk about deep health as a practice of integrity. And integrity is a word that has a lot of different kind of definitions. I mean, they all kind of mean the same thing, but there's a lot of different ways to use integrity. And so I want to talk about 4 primary definitions of integrity and how it applies to deep health. The first definition I want to bring up is this quality of being honest. The quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. That's the first definition of integrity. And deep health absolutely requires brutal honesty with yourself, right? And to be honest with yourself, you have to be paying attention. You have to be awake to what you're doing. And not only what you're doing, but why you're doing it. I'll tell you, my husband and I moved into a house maybe 3 years ago. And it's a house from like the 1960s. But when we bought it, it had just been renovated. At least the upstairs had been. And I don't know, some of you may know this, but my husband's in construction. And we always joke that the carpenter's house is never done. It's not really a funny joke in my mind, but it's definitely something that we talk about a lot. And so when we bought this house that was already renovated, we were so excited because my husband wasn't going to have to spend evenings and weekends working on this house. Well, lo and behold, about a year living in the house, in the basement where the laundry room is, I was folding laundry one day and realized that my feet were wet. And I was standing on like an area rug. I lifted up the area rug, and of course, there's just a pool of water underneath this rug. And long story short, we realized that behind the wall of our basement, there was a leak. Right? So it was coming down behind all these cabinets and onto the floor. So this is not a small problem. Like, it's a pretty major thing, because if we ignore the leak, which is really tempting to do, we only notice it when it rains. And if we ignore the leak, we're going to have a much bigger problem on our hands, right? We're going to have mold. We're going to have, the integrity of the structure of the wall is probably going to be questionable. because of all the water and moisture. So there's a lot of problems we're going to face down the road if we continue to ignore this leak. But this is exactly what I see women doing with their health. They know that the leak is there. They have indications in their life that their health is at risk because of the way that they're living their life, but they are continuing to ignore it. And what ultimately is the price they're going to pay for that is something much bigger down the road. So yes, it's going to require time, money, and attention to repair the leak behind our wall, but it's probably not going to be as much time, money, and attention or energy that we're going to have to give it 5 years from now if we continue to ignore it. We are so afraid to go in and look around at our interior to determine what needs to be cleaned up or a little renovated. But by not going in to do that work, we're creating so many bigger problems down the road. I have had the incredible privilege of interviewing remarkable women's health professionals across a wide array of specialties from all over the world for the Grace and Grit podcast over the past 3 years. Doctors, scientists, nutritionists, physical therapists, hormone specialists, psychologists, trainers, coaches, just to name a few. And while each and every one of these professionals has a unique perspective and a zone of genius so special that I wanted to feature them as a guest, there is a common thread in every conversation, which is this. When it comes down to asking how a woman can start mending her mental and physical health immediately, the answer always boils down to things that will help her unpack the stress in her life. Now, stress comes in a lot of forms, be it psychological, physical, nutritional, environmental, or habitual pattern stress. The solution is almost always found in reducing the total stress load a woman is under. And here's the truth. Unpacking stress from your life does not require extreme measures or overhauling your life overnight. In fact, those approaches often just cause more stress. It doesn't have to be so hard. So on September 5th, I'm offering a free online 5-day event to introduce or reintroduce you to the 5 elements that will help you to physically and emotionally thrive. If you'd like to join me, all you have to do is head on over to graceandgrit.com/5to-thrive and register. And we'll send you everything you need to know a day before the event begins. I hope you'll join me. It's going to be awesome. So when I talk to a woman about brutal honesty with herself, some of the ways that we start getting honest with ourselves is, first of all, we start paying attention. And I think one of the easiest ways to pay attention to how we're behaving is to start writing things down. And holy cow, is there a lot of resistance to writing things down. And writing things down is not difficult. The skill of putting pen to page and recording what you're doing is not hard. So a lot of women will kid themselves that they're not writing things down because it's too hard. But a lot of times, of course, I will uncover that belief or kind of dig deeper into that belief with my clients and have them see that it's not that it's hard. It's that they don't really want to see what they're doing. And why? Because it means more work. It means that there's some things they're going to have to do. There's some things they're going to have to clean up. There's some renovation that's going to have to be done. So I would love for you to just ask yourself today, like, if you're afraid to write things down, why? What is that really about for you? Why don't you make time for self-reflection, really? Why do you keep yourself so busy all the time? Why aren't you asking for help, really? I would argue that it's largely because you're terrified about getting honest with yourself. Because when you do, Again, you identify the work that is ahead of you. But isn't it a lot of work to be where you are? To be in a place where you're not really living in line with who you say you want to be? I talk about this a lot in other episodes of the podcast. I call it integrity pain. Integrity pain is when your actions are misaligned with what you truly want for your life. And integrity pain is a very real kind of pain, and I see most of the clients I work with in it. So a big part of integrity is realigning our actions with what it is we say we value. Women tell me all the time that they value their health, that they know how important it is, and they really do value it. But when I ask them to show me their schedule for the day, you think they show up anywhere on their own schedule? Nope. I used to bring up this quote all the time, and it's still stuck in my head because I think it's such a great one. But Stephen Covey has a quote that basically says, "Don't tell me what's important to you. Show me what's on your schedule." Because if it's not in your schedule, it's not important to you. You're not making it a priority. So to me, that is a lack of integrity. Saying one thing, but doing something else. Saying your health is important to you, but filling up your schedule so full of everything else, there's no time to take care of your health. Another example of lack of integrity is when a woman says that her health means more to her than a number on the scale, but the only thing that she's using to measure her progress is a number on the scale. That is a lack of integrity. That is not lining up what you believe with how you act. So I think, again, this requires brutal honesty. Deep health requires brutal honesty with yourself. Really staying awake to what you're doing and why you're doing it. And if it's misaligned with what you truly want for your life, you have some renovation to do. You have some work to do. But I promise you that work will be far easier and less painful than the work you will have to do if you continue to ignore the issue. All right, let's talk about another definition of integrity. The second definition of integrity, via Google, is a state of being whole, entire, undiminished, or undivided. So essentially, being in integrity is kind of a natural state, right? It's effortless. And I love that, especially when we're talking about deep health. How awesome to strive and aspire to a state of health that feels natural and effortless, that addresses you as a whole person, undiminished, undivided. That is not what the diet industry does for you. The diet industry is really good at separating you from yourself. The diet industry doesn't ask you to go in and pay attention to what you're doing and why you're doing it. The diet industry teaches you, here's the solution to your problem. It's a one-size-fits-all solution. It works for everybody. And if you follow this list of rules and regulations, all your problems will be solved in this amount of time. And we all know that that rarely works out. If it does work out, it's definitely not sustainable for 99.9% of people. Diets treat you like you are solely a body. They are separating your physical being from your psychological and spiritual being. They're not treating you as a whole person. They're treating you as just a person who has a body. And worse than that, they're treating you as if all bodies are designed the same, or should look the same, or have the same set of chemistry. Yes, we all have the same set of chemistry to some degree, but come on, genetic blueprints are very different. Diets diminish you, literally. The definition of diminish is smallness, to make smaller. That's literally what diets try to encourage you to do, right? Physically become smaller. And dieting has you searching outside yourself rather than within yourself for the answers. Which it's kind of tied to that first point that I brought up. My main point here is dieting does not keep you in integrity with yourself. It separates you. It diminishes you. It does not feel natural. It does not feel effortless, which is why we fight it so hard that we have to keep doing it over and over and over again. Integrity is also aligning what you believe with how you act. I've talked about this before, but I'll mention this again, that I operate and teach and coach from the place that thoughts drive emotion. Emotions drive your actions, and your actions create your results. This is both really good news and really hard news for some people to hear, right? It's good and bad news. Because if your thoughts drive your emotions drive your actions, and your actions create your results, if you're thinking crappy thoughts, you're probably not going to take action, or you're going to take action that is not at all in line with what you really want for your life. And then your life will be a result of those actions, which will not be at all what you want for your life. But it's also awesome news in that if you choose your thoughts consciously and you really work and practice thinking things that are useful to you and useful to becoming the type of person you want to become, you will start behaving in a way that produces the results that you truly want in your life. So you can use this sort of line of integrity, aligning what you believe with how you act, in your favor. Please use it in your favor. So a lot of people say to me, well, how do I do that, Courtney? How do I start using this in my favor? Imagine your future self. Imagine who you want to step into being, where you want your life to be a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And start asking yourself, what would she be thinking? How would she be acting? What results would she be creating? And you start acting as if right now. You start trying all that on right now. You start believing that now. You start behaving that way now. And that is what creates that outcome for you. All right, the final definition that I want to bring up today around integrity is Brené Brown's, because I've used this in so many spaces and places, and because she just nails it. She says this: integrity is choosing courage over comfort. Choosing what is right over what is fun, fast, or easy. And choosing to practice our values rather than simply professing them. I'm going to read it one more time. Integrity is choosing courage over comfort. Choosing what is right over what is fun, fast, or easy. And choosing to practice our values rather than simply professing them. Holy cow, does integrity require courage? Deep health requires courage because you're breaking out of the mold of diet culture. You're having to set boundaries and parameters, not just with yourself, but with others. You're having to act in a way that probably the people around you aren't accustomed to you acting, right? You have to kind of be okay with people judging you and your choices. Deep health requires a tremendous amount of courage. And it requires a lot of courage to stay true to yourself when no one else really understands. I've long said that respect to me, another person respecting me, does not require that they understand why I do what I do. It requires that they just respect that I know the best choice for me, and that's enough. So I don't need you to understand my behavior. I just need you to respect that it's the right choice for me. Practicing our values rather than simply professing them. Man, are we good at professing our values, right? So many social media memes and people talking a lot in a lot of spaces and places about what's important to them. But when you look at how they're living their life, really, it doesn't match up. So next week, we're going to talk all about the necessity of courage to create deep health. We're going to talk about courage as a practice. But for this week, I want to leave you with this today, some questions to ask yourself. Are you in integrity pain? Based on how I talked about integrity today, are your actions misaligned with what it is you truly want for your life? And if the answer to that is yes, and for many of you it will be, I was in integrity pain for so many years, and in some ways in my life I still am. And even when I'm in integrity with myself for a while, remember, it's a practice. So I fall out of it all the time. And I have to realign myself and bring myself back into alignment. So don't judge yourself if you identify that, yes, I'm in integrity pain right now. No judgment, just curiosity. So with that curiosity, here's the next question I want you to ask, especially if you answered yes, that you are in integrity pain. What is keeping you there? Really? Remember, this is the deep honesty part. Why are you in integrity pain? What do you know needs to be done to get you out of it? Because you know. I know we like to say things like, I'm confused, I'm overwhelmed, I don't know. None of that's true. What do you need to do today to start getting yourself out of integrity pain? You don't need to know the next 500 steps. You need to know the next one. What is it? And why aren't you doing it? I guarantee you're not doing it because of something that you're thinking. And you might not be thinking it consciously, which is why I always talk about the thought downloads and getting your thoughts out on paper, because it makes it very evident to us how our thoughts are either depleting our life or nourishing our life. So if you're not sure what you're thinking that's causing you to not take action, I would write a little bit about the thing that you're resisting. Why am I not exercising? Why am I not taking time to plan some great food for myself today? Why am I not taking time to trim my schedule a little bit so I'm not so busy all the time? Why am I not signing up for that class that I keep saying I'm going to take? It's something you're thinking. Change your thought. It'll revolutionize your behavior. So that's all I have for you today. I hope it was helpful. And I just want to remind you that we do have the 5 to Thrive event coming up in early September. I would love for you to take part. It's a free 5-day event. We have an awesome workbook and a whole video series. And it's really, again, the fundamentals of deep health, the things that we can do to move our health into a better space with relative ease. Because I know we have made this so complicated, you guys. I mean, the diet industry, the exercise industry, like we have made getting health so complicated. And honestly, the things that are really going to change your health are very simple. And we just need to learn how to do the simple measures consistently. And that, of course, is the work that I teach my clients. That is the reason I created this 5 to Thrive event. And I would love you to participate. So all you have to do is head on over to graceandgrit.com/5 to Thrive. Spell it all out, and you will find our opt-in page, and you can just sign up. And then the night before the event begins, you will get everything that you need to know. The official start date is September 5th. So I hope you'll participate. I hope I'll see you there. And I hope that you will join me for the rest of this series on the principles of deep health. All right, my friends, take care. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening to the Grace and Grit podcast. It is time to mend the fabric of the female health story. And it starts with you taking radical responsibility for your own self-care. You are worth the effort. And with a little grace and grit, anything is possible.